Live from Detroit, Michigan, this is the fourth stop of the Liquid Tide Trans Am Tour, the Motor City 100. This is the best of SCCA's pro racing divisions, where 45 of Detroit's muscle cars will take to the streets of downtown Detroit. And being the home of the motor car, this is the most important race on their schedule. The Liquid Tide Trans Am Tour, the Motor City 100, is sponsored by Oldsmobile. Stop by your Oldsmobile dealer and see what's new from the new generation of Oldsmobile. And by Autolite Spark Plugs, guaranteed for 2 years, no matter how far you go. Most believe that Detroit was the first of the local markets to broadcast motor racing live on television. It was the mid-1950s, and the setting was the old Motor City Speedway, a flat 1/4 mile dirt oval. Hi everybody, I'm Larry Nuber along with Bill Adam. Now, motor racing since that time, Bill, has moved up in class. We're downtown and the broadcasts now are national. But fortunately, there are some things that are still the same.
Well, the level of competition is still the same, and it's just as hungry a field as you would ever find, except a lot more serious. Where it used to be fun playing with cars, now the factory participation has made it extremely tight. You have Ford and Chevrolet and Oldsmobile all in there, all determined to win in their front yard. This is in front of the executives. They desperately want to win Detroit.
Well, back in the 50s, Bill, families would gather around these small black and white television sets and watch for their local heroes. Most of the cars were 6 cylinders, but some of them were Ford flathead V8s. Well, that's the same.
It has remained the same, although for little different reasons. That the SCCA, by trying to keep the cars competitive, whether you want to run a 6 or a V8, allow different weight breaks. A 6-cylinder, because theoretically may have less horsepower, you have a lighter car. This balances out very well, but don't tell that to the Ford people. Their V8 is thundering, ready to win.
Incidentally, television has improved a lot since the 1950s also, and we will broadcast today's race in color. We have 2 veteran pit reporters. The first one, Jim Hendrick, is standing by with the pole setter for today's Motor City 100.
All right, down here we're on the grid next to the pole setter. It is Scott Sharp. Scott, you've won the pole now 2 races in a row. You are the defending champion of this particular event. Is the pole an advantage on the course such as we find here in Detroit?
Well, it's just one of the toughest tracks to race on, and it's a very tough track to pass on. So it's great, I think, for our team to have the Duracell Camaro on the pole, and I think it's kept our confidence very high.
And, of course, you are trying to repeat today. You're in a pretty good position to do so.
Definitely. Hopefully I can just get out in front and take off.
Okay. At the other end of the pits is our compadre, Dennis Torres, with some more pre-race activity. Dennis?
Jim? Let's talk pit strategy here. The SCCA states that in a race of 100 miles or less, there are no mandatory pit stops. Now, mandatory or not, this area is going to be a beehive of activity. Why? Detroit, traditionally tough on tires, drivers, and bodywork. Larry, they're going to be street fighting here today.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, this race traditionally is very, very difficult on equipment and drivers alike. And, Bill, 100 miles may not seem like a long ways, but on the streets of downtown Detroit, that's an eternity.
Well, it will be, and I think the 100-mile length will become extremely tiring, partly because of the heat today. When you run an endurance race, so say the 24 Hours of Le Mans, for example, you run at a slightly reduced pace, both physically and mentally, and that helps you withstand going through a couple of hours in a car. But here we have the sprint race, where there is just nothing to be lost at all by backing off.
Well, the qualifying was a last-minute shootout yesterday. Teammates fired at each other in the final minutes, and they ended up finishing first and second on the grid. 2 cars designed and built by the same man, and it was in doubt right to the very last second. down when they threw the checkered flag after qualifying. We are almost ready for Gentlemen, Start Your Engines. Again, we will go 100 miles on this street course in downtown Detroit. It's very, very demanding, and this race in recent years has been punctuated by yellow flags.
Well, it has been, and unfortunately the race has always been punctuated by incidents between cars. It is a difficult enough thing to do on a proper road circuit where you have the luxury of making mistakes, spinning out and regaining position. But between the concrete walls, if you make contact with the wall, conceivably you're going to rebound into somebody's path, and this has been a problem in the past.
You see everyone scurrying around as we are just moments away from the cars rolling off. You are riding with Canadian Ron Fellows. This is the AER McKinsey Mustang, our in-car camera for today. Ron Fellows has been very competitive in 1991. He was crushed after the Mexico City race. He thought that was a race he had in his hip pocket.
He was very disappointed, and actually I thought the race was in his hip pocket too, because it looked like he was going to run away with it in the very early stages. The Roush cars have always been very, very strong at any Trans Am event. As we're just watching the pace cars get out of the way here, the Roush cars are extremely strong. They're very durable, they're very quick, and it seemed that the V8 engine just loved itself in Mexico.
The cars have been fired. They are now beginning their pace lap. We are moments away from going green for the Motor City 100. You're looking at the streets of the downtown of America and the world's Motor City. This is downtown Detroit. The Trans Am cars, truly the pride and joy of the major manufacturers in America when it comes to America's pony cars or their high-performance sporty type cars, and they are on display today.
Well, this really, I think, was the shocker of maybe the automobile history, was the success of the pony car. And when Camaro first came out to start battling Mustang, a lot of people were surprised at the sales successes. Now, these sales successes are really buoyed up by the success on the racetrack. And the old axiom of winning on Sunday and selling on Monday definitely applies with these cars, as it does NASCAR.
There is no pace lap. The next time by, which is the first time by since the cars have left the pit area, we will go green. As we mentioned, this is downtown Detroit. You're looking at Larned Street, one of 4 major straightaways on this course. Now, that left-hander is actually turns 11 and 12, and they are heading for Jefferson at that point.
I think that's just right down the hill there. This is a hairpin that runs right alongside of the water. We're looking at a view here.
Cobo. Cobo Arena is just off to the right.
They're coming into a corner that normally you would take in first gear in your street car. Extremely tight. Very, very tight. And then, of course, coming out of that, you're trying to get 600 horsepower down to the ground, and in such a low gear, going to be a lot of wheel spin. We just saw a little gasoline splashing out of the back of that one car. That is not something to worry about. The tanks are full. They do have a vent system that allows gas to splash. So, nope.
That was Steve Saleen, and the field right now is exiting the Atwater Street Tunnel. Bill, I imagine the first time you come through that, it must really cause some wild fluctuations with your eyesight.
Well, the biggest problem with the tunnel is something that may have fallen off a car or dripped from a car ahead of you. The actual tunnel itself does not create a problem because they're focusing so far ahead that they're not really worried about a light change, but something hidden by the shadow, very scary.
A short straightaway, then a chicane. You'll see the cars, a quick flick to the left, to the right, back to the main straightaway, and we will be going green at that point. We are ready to go 100 miles. It's 2.5 miles around. Jack Baldwin on the left. Teammate Scott Sharp on the right. They were 1-2 in qualifying. Sharp gets the jump. Baldwin looks for the inside. He's trying to hold his position.
Sharp nailed that start perfectly. He could not have got on the gas more perfectly. Squeezed in front of Baldwin. And look at this. Jack has slotted into second. This is what he wants to do. He will try and shadow young Scott as much as possible. Look back in 3rd and 4th place. Cars right alongside each other. A little bit risky for this opening lap.
That's Irv Hare getting the edge. It's Tom Gloy getting squeezed out as Ron Fellows moves underneath. Make that Wally Dallenbach with a great start. He moves underneath. There's Craig Pickett looking for room to race as we watch the number 5 car of Darren Brasfield also had a terrific start after a disappointing qualifying run.
Now look at how tight this is right now. We were able to see there as the cars exited that one corner on cold tires with the cars not being up to temperature, a lot of wheel spin out of these cars, and you have to be so careful with the cars all around you. If you get a little bit sideways, you could get tapped, of course, totally sideways, would shut down the racetrack. Through
the trees, and every time you see that on today's broadcast, that is Congress Parkway. The cars are almost halfway around. They will now go on to the Larned Street back straightaway when geographically they're halfway around, but actually they're a little further than the 2.5 miles it takes to traverse one lap here in Detroit.
and just snaking through these corners. Look at the Mustang again. See that, the big V8 horsepower of that Mustang. All of the cars we're watching here are the 6 cylinders, but the car just out of our frame, the blue Mustang, is of course the big V8. He will be tending to get a lot more wheel spin than these cars will.
The most significant factor in the Detroit Motor City Trans Am race the past few seasons has been the matter of survival, and Wally Dallenbach standing on the throttle, breaking loose significantly as he came out of that left-hander. But I was bringing up the yellow flags. The yellow flags mean attrition. The fastest car in the early laps of this race has seldom won.
You're exactly right. Greg Pickett played that to perfection a couple of years back that I believe gave Corvette its last win in Trans Am. He ran a very conservative pace throughout most of the race, and with only a few laps to go, Chris Neifel's car broke down. Greg went on to win. So certainly, you want to go as hard as you can right here, but be very careful not to overstress the car. Look at Dallenbach. He is slashing up here.
That is the first of 40 laps now complete. Scott Sharp takes an impressive, but I suggest reasonably conservative lead. His teammate Jack Baldwin out of Georgia continues to run in second place. Third is Herb Hare, but he has the Tiger, the monster man of today, WD 40. I used to call him because his dad, initials WD, ran number 40 IndyCar. That's Wally Dallenbach Jr., and he is looking to get third. Well,
Wally did not have a particularly good qualifying situation because they gambled a little bit on a weight shift in the car. It did not work out. In fact, made the car, as he put it, very loose. They put the car back to the situation where they knew what the car was going to handle like, and once you get that, then you get your confidence back. And look at Wally now. He's going to the inside. He's going to try it on, and he makes it.
Oh,
great move exiting that one corner. He decided to put the car deep inside Irv Hare's Oldsmobile, and once he is there, Irv has no choice. He cannot move over.
And there's Gloy looking to get around Irv Hare too. Apparently, Irv is not running the pace that the rest of the people up in the top 5 would like to have. Gloy, who was squeezed out on that first lap, is now looking to be the next one to put a position down, another one on Irv Hare.
I think when the Mustang got by Irv, it kind of surprised him, and because he wasn't able to take the normal line going into that corner, it slowed his exit speed. That helped Gloy catch up, and I don't think you'll see Irv caught unaware again.
Well, the man on the move appears to be Wally Dallenbach Jr. It's that bright blue number 31. It's not exactly a one-off car, but it's a car out of the Roush stables, and we expect to see that no more than 3 or 4 times this year.
And that in itself is a shame. I think Wally is someone that's great in the Trans Am series. He's very personable and a real charger. He's the type that when he starts from the back of the pack, he puts on a performance that no one ever can.
Tom Gloy currently being shown in the number 5 position. There are the leaders here in the early stages of the Motor City 100. Scott Sharp goes by, Baldwin, there's Dallenbach, there's Hare, Tom Gloy, Greg Pickett, Ron Fellows. There are the first 6 cars as they flash by you from the exact vantage position that we have here just outside the entrance to corner number 1.
And we are hoping that they stay where they are and that we stay where we are.
Yeah, Bill and I were commenting before this race began that each of us have been around motor racing a few more years than we would like to admit, and this is probably the closest to the action on the outside of a left-hander either one of us has ever been.
Yeah, the only way to get closer, I think, is to be behind the steering wheel. Just snaking through this section of really a very, very nice street circuit. I think the Detroit street circuit is arguably the best in North America. Now, Miami is not a pure street circuit in that it uses a system of park roadways, but this is just daily streets here. And they keep the streets in very, very nice order. Look at how smoothly the cars are going down the streets here. You don't see a great deal of bumping or bouncing all over the track. A very good circuit, very challenging, but very, very nice.
Now, if you're at home watching, and not to be redundant, if we're reading this up again, they're going to say, oh, there goes Newber trying to come up with a myth. I know things look very smooth right now. They look extremely calm. But that's the way the races at Detroit normally seem to go for the Trans Am cars. They'll go halfway, 20, 22, 23 laps, and then all that 4-letter word breaks out.
That's exactly what does happen. They will be sitting in their cars right now trying to let a race strategy develop, and they're going to be watching cars. For example, the car following Dallenbach's Mustang, which is Irv Hare's Oldsmobile, he will be watching for any weaknesses on Wally's car, and in turn, Wally will watch ahead of him.
Well, more 150-mile-an-hour action through downtown Detroit coming up. The leaderboard shows Scott Sharp, Jack Baldwin, and Wally Dallenbach Jr. 1, 2, 3. But while you were away, there's a change. You're going to see the bright blue, red and white American flag trim, number 31. There it is on the left-hand side of your screen. He's now second.
Dallenbach did precisely the thing that he did just a few laps previously. The same position. Waited till the car moved back over from left to right, slotted that Mustang inside, and look at him. He's flying around the track. Gentle little power slides. At this point, Wally is not using the car up, but he is driving very, very quickly and very hard. Real charger.
The leaders are lapping the 2.5 miles of Detroit downtown at almost 2 seconds slower, Bill, than that they qualified, but they have full loads of fuel, plus they got to be thinking, I need to finish.
Exactly. You don't, in qualifying, sometimes you risk the car 100%. You just go as hard as you can, get the furthest up on the grid you possibly can. Because if you're starting on the 10th row, that means that there's 19 cars ahead of you that by making a mistake could take you out. So you want to start up as far as possible. But in the race, once you can see there's only 3 or 4 cars ahead, then you do slow your pace down and you try and drive a smart race as quickly as possible, but smart. Now we're watching on board here. This is Ron Fellows in the Mackenzie Mustang. Look at him work the wheel, just how smoothly he is, dropping down through the gears here. Now he'll be in 2nd gear going through a hairpin. Watch the little movement on that shift. There's 3rd, 4th. Car accelerating very, very quickly. Just tiny movements through the gear shift. And look at the steering as well. These cars do now have the benefit of power steering, although years ago, back when I used to drive, I can't understand it, they did not have power steering. There's 2 benefits. One, that obviously it's a lot easier on the driver so you don't get fatigued. But secondly, the steering is so much faster. Here is our roof camera. This is also on top of Ron Fellows' Mackenzie Mustang. That's it. You can just see the little white bump on the roof there as he's going around. This is the view. Oh, that's a yellow flag out. That's the yellow and red is oil or something on surface. But look at the Camaro going sideways.
It's Baldwin. Look at Jack Baldwin. He is either come into contact with something or perhaps has a flat tire. What's your guess, Bill?
I would guess either a broken rear wheel or rear suspension with the car crabbing sideways like that. Oh, no, terrible place to...
Not only a terrible place on the racetrack to have that happen, but a major disappointment for Jack.
Come on, Jack.
We've had a lot of conversations all weekend long, and he was so confident about this. And Bill, you pointed out that Jack is good on these tight street courses. His teammate has been running so well the last few weeks. Jack had high hopes for today.
Jack is excellent on the street courses. Last year at Three Rivers, Quebec, which is another very, very tight course, he was just dynamite to watch. Got the first pole position of his Trans Am career. Look at that left rear wheel now. That has broken. You can see it is actually back into the fender well.
No marks on any of the bodywork of the car, so it does not appear as though that there was any error on behalf of the race driver. Something just broke in the car.
I think so.
Jack Baldwin bringing the Skoal Bandit around at a tremendously reduced speed, and a real disappointing moment for the driver from Marietta, Georgia. The day is over for 43-year-old Jack Baldwin. Well, the pride of Norwalk, Connecticut, Scott Sharp, who qualified for the pole in today's Motor City 100, has remained out front for the early stages of this race. But meanwhile, his teammate on the American Equipment Company, that's Buzz McCall's team, very close to the Chevrolet factory, has fallen with misfortune, and right now, standing by in the pits, we have an update.
Okay, it looks like we have a problem with the rear end. You know exactly what's wrong with the car, sir.
It bent the rear end housing and it knocked some of the linkage loose. It holds the rear end in the car.
All right, does that mean he's out of the race? Or you're still going to try to fix it?
He's done.
He's done. Okay, that's the report. He's done. Jack Baldwin is done for the day. They cannot repair this car. Let's go back up to Larry Newber.
Thank you, Jim Hendrick. Well, Jack came into today's race ranked 3rd in points, but he will undoubtedly drop several positions after the misfortune this afternoon in the early laps of the Motor City 100.
This has to be one of the major disappointments for the Chevrolet people, because Baldwin is just a fantastic racer. And we were talking prior to the race, and I had actually thought that Jack would probably win this. I thought he was a tiger and could really do the job for their team. But this is the man right now we've all got eyes on, and that's Wally Dallenbach Jr., that number 31 Mustang, although not really pulling away too quickly from the Irv Hare Oldsmobile. I think Hare probably could be sitting in a nice position right now, driving very smoothly and maybe conserving his car.
Based on everything that we know in terms of what has happened historically here, plus the conversations with the drivers up to race morning today, you got to believe that no one is showing their entire hand.
No, I don't think they will be either. This is a great game of strategy right now, because I think we're going to see positions changing in the course of maybe the next 10 laps or so. Over that, people will say, well, fine, now we can see what so-and-so is doing. I can start to play out my hand a little bit more.
Well, Sharp continues to lead with Wally Dallenbach second, Irv Harris third, Tom Gloy holding down the 40s in fourth position. The Chevrolet's going to be very happy about that. He's one of their racers for today. Ron Fellows, our in-car camera, is in fifth as we continue to watch the race leader, Scott Sharp, still lapping about a second and a half slower than he qualified. Greg Pickett in the Chevy Camaro is in sixth position. Darren Brasfield not charging yet today, as we are accustomed to seeing him in his old Cutlass Supreme, is in seventh. George Robinson is 8th, Paul Gentilossi is 9th, and Bob Sobey in another Chevy Camaro is currently in 10th position. Now, we talked to Scott Sharp earlier in this week about what it's like coming in here as the defending champion of this race and racing in downtown Detroit.
No, if I can lead, I want to lead, but I just don't want to be taken out being in the lead, which sometimes has happened in the past, and also want to just make sure I take care of my car, because this place really can beat a car up pretty good, and you want to have as much of it left, like it's been illustrated in the last 3 races at the end of the race.
Exactly the point we've been making, Bill.
I think he's far too young to race. We got to take his license away.
He does have a bright future ahead of him, and I have the feeling that Scott is a better race driver, and much of his improvement has been intellectual. It's been mental in 1991, and some interesting conversations. I mean, the people in the crew think that actually racing with Jack Baldwin, the old sage that he is, has helped Scott.
I expect that could be very true. Scott impressed me a couple of years ago when I was watching him, and he was out at one particular track looking at a corner and just questioning and saying, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I get faster? He listened to everybody and thought through those things, chose the proper things, and made an adjustment. I was very impressed. He does not have an ego to stop him from going quicker. He's confident in what he does and so smooth in the car that he is so deceptive. You don't realize that he's going that quickly because he is so smooth.
Fellows and Greg Pickett, cars numbered 4 and 3 right there on your screen. They are considering contesting the number 5 position, and there is Ron Fellows, who right now is the hare of this pack, and he's being chased by another hare.
Certainly is.
And it's not Irv.
We're back on board Ron Fellows' car right here. This is just coming around the first turn. It's a long 180-degree corner. Look at how it just feeds right up against the wall. We're going back over to the left. Heavy braking at this point, drop down a couple of gears, and then we get a 90-degree corner to the right. Close to the wall, and then as you're feeding power out, look how close you get to that wall again. It does require tremendous precision, again, on a road circuit. You can't afford to make a mistake because the wall will keep you out of the race.
17 turns and 2.5 miles. 10 of them are 90 degrees. That's along Congress Parkway right there. Hard left-hander now going back toward the Renaissance Center. There you see it towering on the left-hand side. We're right on the water's edge. The Detroit River is just to the left of the Renaissance Center, as you saw it. On to Larned Street. As I mentioned, 10 of the turns are 90 degrees. You're getting a great view of them right here. And one of the final turns on this course, down at turn number 15, as they go past Cobo Arena onto Atwater Street, is actually 120 degrees, that corner. So more than a hairpin, and now that becomes a 3-car battle.
That's Darren Brasfield. Yeah, I think Brasfield is closed up. As Greg Pickett is fighting with Fellows Mustang, Brasfield is closed right up there and almost snuck by there.
Ron Fellows, Mississauga, Ontario. Lots of experience in sedan races in his home country of Canada. A great number of wins up there, and he moved to Trans Am racing pretty seriously in 1990.
Ron is a very talented driver, a fellow I've raced against a number of times, and he's very good. Look at this. Now, we've got exhaust smoke coming out of this Mustang. This looks like Wayne Akers' car. I believe that his engine is done.
The Florida car dealer, and the engine is trying to regenerate itself. You can see it kicking out those last gasps as he comes around that left-hander.
Yeah. Oh!
We've had a major crash. That's Phil Kalusha. Phil Kalusha, I believe. The car is white with tiger stripes on it. Yes, that is Kalusha. And it was a very hard hit. Kalusha was serious damage up front. He is an occasional Trans Am racer, and this is the first of our very serious incidents here at Detroit today.
And that is a very serious incident. Look at the trail of water and oil that's coming from the wall on the right-hand side. That's the flagger that's just standing up behind it there. Now, he's going to be warning other cars to slow down. You can see him dropping his hands down as quickly as possible. He'll be calling for an ambulance and a truck. There, slow down.
Kalusha only runs Trans Am cars occasionally. This is a race, of course, he always wants to make. Back to Akers.
That's the Wayne Akers car. Again, the smoke looks like it's coming out the exhaust pipe. Yes, it is. It's out the pipe on the right-hand side. So he's got a valve or piston problem of some type, and I think that will be terminal for him.
Well, he's got 8 cylinders, so maybe if he loses 2, he can still continue to race.
Never. I guess that's one advantage of a V8.
Well, we're monitoring the situation with Phil Kalusha very closely because visually it appeared to be quite serious. No update yet. We'll be back after these words. We are back in Detroit. The speeds are not in the vicinity of 150 miles an hour. They are now down closer to 50 miles per hour. Full course yellow for leader Scott Sharp. Second place, Wally Dallenbach Jr. Herb Harris third. Tom Ploy is fourth. And in fifth is Ron Fellows. Pickett, Brassfield, Robinson, Genelosi, and Sobey make up 6 through 10. There you see the pace car now being shadowed by Scott Sharp, who's led this race since the drop of the green flag.
This is a point of just tremendously different emotions. For one thing, Scott Sharp had just worked out a 5.5-second lead, and now he loses all that lead, so he's disappointed by all this. But conversely, the other people get to close him back up.
Well, Dennis Torres is standing by in the pits, and I'm told that we have an update on somebody out. Must be Wayne Akers. How about it, Dennis?
Instead, it's Gary Fouch. Gary, what put you ahead of the Motor City 100?
We had a lifter go bad last night. We couldn't get a part until late this morning, which means we had to take the intake manifold off and everything. Putting it back on, it didn't get a chance to, the silicone didn't get a chance to dry up. Gasket blew, and we got oil all over every place.
Well, he went out a little early, but how's the competition out there? A lot of fender banging going on?
The track is in good shape, and they're moving fast. It's would have been fun to stay out there.
We'll see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, Gary is driving the last of the Off-the-Doll cars, Bill. That's a historical name in Trans Am racing.
That is a name. In fact, I even drove one of those historical cars, and even back when I drove it, it felt like a historical car.
Gary is from Minnesota and has experience also in 5,000 cars. Jim Hendrick, you have more for us from the pit area.
Yeah, we do. Wayne Akers, of course, very disappointed at this point. What happened to the engine?
Well, we were running along real well, and all of a sudden it developed a miss at the end of the front straight. Coming on around, I looked down, noticed temperatures were real high. It looks like we cooked the motor.
All right, so that means it's through for the day.
We're done, yeah.
That's part of racing, Wayne.
That's racing.
All right, back up to you, Larry.
Thank you, Jim. Well, Wayne Akers, who came into today's race ranked 21st in points, car number 21 did. He had only competed one time prior to today, and he finished in 10th position, but his day ends prematurely here in Detroit.
I think the miss that developed was maybe a missing connecting rod as it put out through the side of the block.
You know, SCCA is very fortunate to have the Hunter Trauma Center present at every one of its races. Dr. Harlan Hunter and his entire family out of the St. Louis area make their presence known at every one of the Trans Am races, and it's a welcome sight.
One of the most important functions of any motorsport event is the safety precautions taken. Behind me, from St. Louis, Missouri, is the Hunter Trauma Center, a rolling emergency room, if you will, ready for any accident, any eventuality that might take place on or off this race course. Let's talk to Dr. Hunter. The function of safety for these drivers and crews is paramount.
I think so, and what we've tried to do is produce a national team because the people want continuity of care. That's what we have to try to produce, and you have to use local people along with this to make it become a true medical team to take care of the injuries, not only of the drivers, but of the pit crew and their families on a weekend. The accidents are, of course, the major problem that could occur and why we have to have so much invested in this back end of the trailer. But the rest of the weekend is basically taking care of the pit crews and their families. There are lots of burns and foreign bodies and eyes, people getting sick on a weekend, and we have to be their medical team to take care of all of those needs. That keeps us busier than the actual race car drivers.
The 170-mile-per-hour speeds can produce emergencies at any time. Dr. Hunter's crew is all volunteer, and the money for this $250,000 operation comes with no sponsor backing. Despite shouldering the financial burden, Dr. Hunter takes no shortcuts.
As Dan Gould is showing you now, one of our paramedics shows all the supplies and the equipment that we have to try to stabilize and maintain life. There's the crash cart, and of course the monitor. There's a portable x-ray. on this is the blue machine, and then we have oxygen. Down below here is our various cases we have set up specifically for like eye injury, suture care, starting IVs. Our job is to try to stabilize and maintain life in this portion of the truck.
Doctor, what is this unit we're standing by?
It's a Kawasaki Mule. We use it to patrol the pits, to take care of the heat injuries, and also to transfer people back to the medical center.
When does it ever get hectic, if it does?
It can happen any time in racing, but sometimes after the race is even more hectic than through the race. That's when people are unloading their trucks and loading their equipment, and the drivers come in with their burns. We've had 6 to 8 people in there at one time after races.
You're a doctor for all occasions, for all teams.
We try to be. We kind of call it being the doc in the box for everybody.
Dr. Hunter, of course, is a fan of SCCA, and aren't they not lucky he's here for all the safety precautions we've talked about?
Nice motor racing person, too. Let's look at the first 10. There's Sharp, Dallenbach Jr., Irv Hare, Tom Gloy, and Ron Fellows is ranked 5th at this point. 6th through 10th are Greg Pickett from Alamo, California, Darren Brassfield, another Californian, George Robinson from the proud state of Texas, Paul Gentilossi from down the road here in Lansing, Michigan, and Bob Sobey from the sunlit state of Arizona, Phoenix to be exact. Incidentally, Dr. Hunter is also an avid collector of autographs from famous race drivers. He has most Indy 500 drivers, I am told, in his collection. Thank you, Mr. Fielding, for telling me. Does he have yours? Great feeling. Mine, having never won the Indianapolis 500, having won the Temple Street 500 back home in Indiana, I don't know that I qualify.
You know, he does a wonderful job, certainly, with that medical center, but I think if he ever gives it up, I think he'd be a perfect stand-in for the Bartles and James White.
Maybe so. We will not share that with him. Today's race features, of course, the Trans Am cars of the Sports Car Club of America. For more information on SCCA Pro Racing, call 1-800-255-5550, one of the most active clubs in America. We have a very positive report from the crash scene. We have not gone back and visually looked at it here for a minute or two, but Phil Kalusha, we are told, is out of the race car, walking under his own power, stunned a bit, but that was a pretty serious looking crash. But for the friends and family of Phil that might be tuned into this broadcast, he is okay.
One of the things that I have always been a real fan about in a Trans Am car is their safety. They are very, very strong cars. If you had to be in a vehicle in a crash, if you knew you were going to be in one, you could not ask for anything better than one of these. A sophisticated roll cage system inside them to keep the car from collapsing onto you if you do happen to flip over. But just as important, that cage system extends forward and backwards. So you are in a very protective little cocoon when something like that happens.
Well, the scrubbing back and forth of tires usually means that the drivers are anticipating going green very shortly. We've been under yellow for about the past 7 or 8 minutes. Nice break for these guys. I mean, this is a tough course. You really have to concentrate, but they've had a little bit of a break here.
It will help some of the people, because what sometimes happens is to start a sprint race where you know you have to charge and go very, very hard right toward one.
Oh, Les Lindley from Anaheim, California, one of the most veteran drivers in Trans Am racing, has pulled out under this yellow flag. Jim, what's going on?
Right now, down here, Les Lindley has climbed out of his car. It looks like an overheating problem. Am I right, Les?
Yeah, it's overheating. Last time it was me. This time it's the car. We got to get this in sync together.
All right, now, it was spraying all over the place. What has given you an indication you had a problem?
Oh, the temperature was starting to rise about before the pace lap come out, and the temperature was getting up there, and then all of a sudden it started to fall off. I knew we was losing water.
All right. Now there's some activity up the other end of the pit. Let's go to Dennis Torres. Dennis?
Thanks, Jim. I'm standing with Brian Bradshaw, who's the crew chief for Irv Hare, currently lying in 3rd place and the winner of the last round in Dallas. Brian, what has Irv been saying to you in the radio during the yellow flag?
We're real comfortable. The car's running real nice. We're the first V6 behind 2 V8s. The V8s are on soft tires. We're just going to let them run their own race and pick them off as we go.
Now, what does this yellow flag do to you as far as strategy, as far as tires, the driver himself? What's the strategy now as with this long yellow flag?
It gives them time to breathe, gives them time to think. We don't mind going a full green race. In fact, in some respects, with the soft tires on the V8s, it might be better to go green to green. But we're okay. It closes us up. We'll be good.
Is he pacing himself right now, or is he going all out?
Oh, no. We're pacing ourselves. Irv never goes all out at the start of a race. We just wait for the front runners to wear themselves down. Thank you.
Irv Hare, who has finished first and second this year, but he's also had a 21st position finish. He's right now ranked third. You can see Sharp and Dallenbach continue to show their heels to everybody, and Tom Gloy and Ron Fellows round out the top 5. We're in Detroit. We're live. This is the Motor City 100. The yellow flag continues to delay the racing action, but also continues to give the drivers just a little longer break. But the word on the radios is that the pace car's lights will be coming off shortly, pulling off the racetrack. We may be going green. The drivers think so.
Yes, you can see that they are all getting pretty vigorous now in the tire scrubbing to make sure that they're just as good as they can possibly be. What Scott Sharp will want to do is two things. Get on the gas as early as possible and not give that Mustang right behind a chance to jump, because Dallenbach will really take a run on him now. Since he's been able to close up and cool down his tires, he's in a perfect situation. But also what Scott has to do is to not overcook it.
All right, a V8 Camaro leads the race. A V8 Ford Mustang right there. Wally Dallenbach is currently in second. Oldsmobile, 6-cylinder, Irv Hare behind the wheel, currently holds down third position. And another 6-cylinder, the only 6-cylinder in a camp of 3 cars, Tom Gloy, the man who runs the camp, is fourth, and Ron Fellows in a Ford V8 is fifth. Yellow flags continue to flutter as the field moves around this 2.5-mile facility. There is Wally Dallenbach, who's had a great race so far today. We told you that he began today's race as the 10th fastest qualifier, but he has charged to second position. We talked with him earlier this week.
Well, here the biggest thing you have to get through at Detroit is the slower traffic. There's so many cars that show up for this race. You have to be really careful getting through it. Some guys are probably a little bit more patient than I am with that. But that's probably the biggest thing in Detroit is you have to get through the traffic and get through it clean.
Wally Dallenbach is looking real anxious. You know, he has been also very impressive in Winston Cup this year. At Talladega, for instance, he once improved himself 20 positions before he's involved in one of those big 20-car crashes. Bill, looks like we're getting ready to go green again.
We are, and look at this. Watch this seat. Takes place in third place. Look at Irv Hare. He looks like he's trying to sneak up on the inside of that Mustang.
All of a sudden, that Mustang grew. Wally must have been feeding it during the yellow flag.
Oh, boy. Well, again, Scott Sharp has been particularly impressive on both the starts, but look at how Dallenbach has closed up through that corner. And he's going to go down inside him.
Wally Dallenbach is looking for the #1 position. He's got the line.
A good move by Scott Sharp. He did have an option of turning over. He wisely kept out of the way and thinks that, well, okay, Wally, you go by me now because I'm going to go back around you again later.
And now Irv Hare looks like he has designs on the runner-up spot. He had the momentum, but he just didn't have the line. Sharp moved back in line as quickly as he possibly could. I held him back.
I do miss Dallenbach not running in this series. He is great fun to watch in one of these cars. But yes, you're right. Hare is right on the back of Scott Sharp. And also Fellows. Look at Fellows is closed right up here. Now here we're on board.
Fellows trying to outbreak Tom Gloy going into this left-hander. He has it. He comes off onto Larned Street, headed for it right now.
He's got position too. You can see he was able to take the apex. If Gloy had been alongside, Fellows would not have been able to cut over. A great start by both the Ford drivers.
So the restart really shuffles the positions up front. Different cars and drivers responding differently to that long pause.
Well, something, too, that can happen. I think Fellows is sitting back here, and he sees his teammate Dallenbach and the other Ford Mustang doing all these wonderful things. That inspires you as a driver. You say, well, fine, he can do it. I better get up there and have a tangle with him, too. There's Ron Fellows. See that air hose hanging in the window, just trying to blow in any little bit of cool air it can to help with the ventilation, help keep him relaxed.
Oh, on Friday it was pleasant. Thursday night it was very pleasant in the mid-70s. Wow. And look at how close Irv Hare is to Scott Sharp.
Love that.
Boy, one teeny little mistake and Mr. Hare is going to be running like a wild hare and get around Scott Sharp. Talking about the weather again, it was very pleasant Thursday. Friday it warmed up a little bit, and here Saturday it got downright hot.
It is a very, very hot day. Hare is going very quickly right now. I wonder if maybe he's ready to play out one of his cards. He looks like he has been holding back just a bit because he's obviously not getting left by the Sharp Camaro right now.
The lap speeds are down to the area of the high 70 miles per hour, but that is certainly no indication of the kind of activity you get, nor the terminal velocity speeds, which will approach 150 miles per hour on the 4 major straightaways on this course. But because there are so many 90-degree corners, the brakes get a real healthy workout. The cars slow down significantly, and as a result, the average speed comes down. But still, street racing is probably the most dangerous thing these people do all year long.
It definitely is, because your car does not have the luxury of spinning off the track and going through the grass or doing a couple of 360s. You've got a wall sitting there just waiting to bite you, so it is dangerous from that standpoint. It is not dangerous in creating injuries, because the speeds are so relatively low that your injury factor actually is quite low. Great shots here from, again, on board that car right there, the number 4 Mustang of Ron Fellows. Now, Ron looks like he may be using up his rear tires a little bit too much at this point. I've seen a lot of tail wag going on. The car's ahead. Just watch the back end of that Oldsmobile as he leaves the corner. Well, actually, you can't see it too well right there. A little bit of a breakup. Very, very smooth out of the corner, and yet Ron a couple of times got on the gas a fraction too early. He cannot afford to overheat those tires or he'll go backwards.
Ron Fellows' best finish, as you just saw moments ago, in 1991 as a second. He has paired that second place finish with 2 7th place finishes to rank second in overall point standings.
Boy, is this tight racing or what? This is the view from our helicopter now, and you can see just snaking through, that they're going through the tunnel right here.
The eye in the sky today is provided by the fine folks at the CRM Group of Melbourne, Florida. And boy, they are a welcome addition. This gives you an idea. The cars are there on Atwater Street. You're going to see the pits just to the left, the Detroit River. To your right, there you go, past the pit area, the main grandstands. This is corner number 1. Break down from about 150 miles an hour immediately down to a horseshoe bend. That's corner number 2. It's like a corner on an oval, although a smaller version.
What a great view. We get to see how tight this battle is right now. From 1st to 5th, 2.1 seconds.
One of those 90-degree corners, this straightaway, not even really classified as one of the major straights on this track. As you can see, you just touch the gear shift and the throttle pedal, and you are immediately on the brakes, and you need to make a right-hander now. The cars are moving up toward Congress Parkway, actually leaving the downtown area. Then they leave that with a hard left-hander when they... no, that's still on Congress, that left-hander, through the park, if you will, along Congress Street. They're lost momentarily there through the buildings in downtown Detroit. Another left-hander. Then the next right-hander will put them on Larned Street. This is as close as you come to a back straightaway. There is a challenge being mounted by Irv Hare for second. His second, third, and fourth mount up. Fellows goes to the right side. Ron Fellows may have the edge on Irv Hare.
Oh.
There you can see the cars moving into the left-hander coming up.
I think Hare, Hare is able to hold him off. What happened there, Hare did make a little bit of a challenge to the Scott Sharp Camaro, but got blocked. Now, because he was blocked, he was not able to take that normal quick exit off the corner. That gave Fellows the run. We're getting a really good example of the different cars, where the Camaro is a V8, the Oldsmobile immediately in front of us, right there, that black car, that is the 6-cylinder. The car we're on board with is the V8. You can watch that the V8s definitely accelerate quicker out of the corners and will pull out a bit of a lead down the long straights. But the 6-cylinder, because of its slightly lighter weight and better balance, closes right back up through the tight stuff and under braking.
About 3,500 or 35 cubic inch difference between the V6 and the V8, but the compensation is the club, SCCA, allows the V6s to be just a little lighter. So it's V6 versus... Wally Dallenbach has rocketed up from 10th to 1st, and in the process of doing that, turned in the race's fastest lap at 157.1. And that is just a little quicker than Scott Sharp, who before the yellows flew was lapping at about 157, maybe 157.5. They'd actually picked the speed up a little bit. They're going about a half a second faster now than they were in the opening laps.
Well, they can't afford to sit back too long. We talked about saving yourself and not really showing your hand, but the further the race goes on, the more they have to revise their strategies and really go harder.
Well, the first 8 cars out there still have left us up to the gods to determine who's going to win. They're that close. Dennis, you got a word for us from the pit area?
Okay, Larry, we're looking at Peter Demon of Ontario, Canada. He's brought in his Camaro for the second time. Earlier, he was black flagged. They took off the hood. They looked underneath the car, worked on some of the suspension components in the front. He's currently sitting in the car. The engine is off, and it looks like it's going to be a very long day. In fact, it looks like it is a day for Peter Demon.
Peter Demon, the man who is famous for having race cars that are one color on one side and another color on the other side. He used to catch me on that, but no longer. Now I know.
Well, hopefully none of these fellows will have any white concrete on the side of the car at the end of the day.
Oh, Peter's cars last year were red, white, and black. One side of the car was one color and the other side the other. Now he's gone to a bright green and yellow for the 1991 season. Well, Dennis is standing by with the man of many colors, Peter Demon. Dennis?
Peter, you've been in the pits twice now. You called it quits. What took you out of the race?
We feel we may have lost the rear main seal of the motor. We're not sure yet, but it seems to be a consistent small oil leak. We've probably lost about 3 quarts in 15 laps. At this rate, we'll lose enough to lose the engine by the end of the race. We've decided to pack it in.
A lot of hard racing going on out there. How are the track conditions?
It's slippery in spots. I was getting a lot of push. It seems like all the oil that's soaked into the asphalt over the weekend has come up on this hot day, and it's really making things slippery out there. I would think everyone's suffering from a lot of push.
With the Renaissance Center in the background, here is Scott Sharp looking like he would like to go around. He's got him. I don't know that Dallenbach planned this.
Boy, well, I don't know. Maybe Wally made an error exiting that corner, but that looked very easy for Scott to go around. Now, maybe Scott's playing a bit of a psychological game here, too. He wanted to see just how much steam does Dallenbach. No, he's got a problem. Wally is slowing down a lot.
Wally Dallenbach drops from 1st to 6th as the cars enter the wide sweeping corner number 1, and Wally Dallenbach, whom we speculated might have been controlling this race, obviously had a problem, Bill.
Boy, and what a dreadful...
Oh, and here's Fellows. Look at Fellows up the inside of here. A big surprise. He has waited for that move for about 7 or 8 laps.
Ron is having a great time out there. He's just trying to conserve his tires.
Ron Fellows, Mississauga, Ontario, now running second.
You can see it again, once the view from this, the Ron Fellows Roush Mustang right there, that number 4 car. That's the great shots that we're getting from that little tiny roof camera up there. Not enough to upset the aerodynamics of the car, and this is one of the advantages of a street track, is that you can get to mount cameras on this Fellows car.
Aerodynamics at Detroit?
Well, keeps the smog off the back window.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Well, Irv Hare, smarting from that pass on behalf of Ron Fellows, is now running right behind him and filling Fellows' rearview mirrors, and either one of them look like they're in a position to put a challenge on to Scott Sharp. Scott Sharp, who, let's now say, inherited the lead when Wally Dallenbach had his problem.
Boy, and Ron just got really quiet there into that corner. I thought he'd made a mistake that was maybe going to allow Irv Hare pass, but he's obviously still holding his position. Right down to this slow hairpin again, accelerating off in a very low gear. Look at this now. Hare almost bumped him. This is something. It's a bit of a luxury with the Trans Am cars. They can't touch and get away with it.
Through the Atwater Street Tunnel, there is the leader, Scott Sharp, making the final left and right-hander onto the Atwater straightaway. He will complete halfway, lap number 20 this time, and standing by with some information from the Dallenbach pit, maybe shedding some light on this, is Dennis. Jim making it. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
All right, down here in the pits, we've got Graham Scott. Graham, I know you're looking for your car. He's saying that maybe this car is going to come into the pits right now, but Graham Scott is the crew chief, and the car is coming in. Here he comes. Wally Dallenbach is coming in to the pits. Graham Scott will not talk to us. He's kind of busy, but the car is coming in. They said he was losing some horsepower and that the engine was missing, and he couldn't keep it up in the chutes. So right now, Graham Scott in the red talking to Dallenbach, the driver, and that's the action down here of your one-time leader. Back up to you, Larry.
Thank you, Jim. Not only one-time leader, but one of the 4 previous winners of this race who had entered today. Now, Bill, they went to the tail end.
I didn't realize that Mustang was a rear-engine car. I don't know. It looks like they could be working on some sort of a fuel problem back there. Maybe they're because of the heat. There's some type of percolation.
It's okay in the upper RPM. Huh? How many people can walk in the car? It doesn't, man.
Well, we almost got some inside information there. He said it was okay in the upper RPMs, but you're often down in the lower RPMs on the street.
That's right. If this car is burbling off the corner, which, oh, look at now. No, Hare was just taking a little look. They're just inches apart. This is the best racing.
You know, it's interesting. On that hard right-hander, corner number 3, we have seen both Scott Sharp and Ron Fellows pass there today, and it's not a place where I really would normally expect the Trans Am cars to pass here. And I'm just wondering if those are not just surprise passes. Hare looks faster than Fellows now. Now we're back to Dallenbach.
We're back into the Dallenbach car, and you can see that it looks like they are changing batteries right now. I think that he has had a battery problem because all of the power starts to run to the battery. The car, of course, requires a tremendous amount of voltage for the electronics to run. One of the things that's running is an electric fuel pump. That may explain it.
Dallenbach going down a lap. His chances for victory are probably going by the wayside right now. There is second place Ron Fellows, third place Irv Hare. In fourth place is Tom Gloy. Fifth is Greg Pickett, and now Wally Dallenbach has dismounted. Jim?
All right. Well, they're talking right now to their crew chief and a very disappointed driver, Wally Dallenbach, who had really given. Wally, can you tell me exactly what went on?
We started losing. We didn't lose fuel pressure, but it started to miss. And the bottom coming up out of the corners, it just got worse and worse. Like the fuel was boiling or something. Too bad, because this Ford was hooked up today.
Yeah, you were really traveling, and it was a big disappointment for you.
Yeah, it felt great. The car felt great. They did a good job. It's just, you know, right now it's not coming off the corners. It's dying in the corners, and just one of those deals.
All right, so the attrition continues here in the Detroit Grand Prix, and let's go back up to you, Larry.
Well, Henry Ford, and Irv Hare has gotten around Ron Fellows, so a second misfortune, at least this one is just temporary, as Irv Hare puts a position on the Ford, but now Ron Fellows tries to take it back. They are side by side. We'll be back to update you on this exciting battle for second place in just a moment. After 20 laps, here is the race summary here in Detroit. The leader is car number 33, Scott Sharp. That's the V8-powered Camaro. He has led the last 16 laps of the 20 we've had so far. There have been 2 lead changes. Wally Dallenbach was the other significant race leader. Cars out of race, Bob Patch, Jack Baldwin, Wayne Akers, Phil Kalusha, a very hard crash, he's okay, and Gary Futch. Les Lindley also out, Peter Demon, and Philip Bartelt. The cars who have gone to the sidelines here in the first half of the Motor City 100.
Well, Scott Sharp's race is really just falling very nicely into place. He's continuing to drive very smoothly and apparently not using that car up. But he hasn't stretched the lead, and I think this may be something that's going to gain increasing importance over the case of the next 10 laps. Irv Hare, who is following not too far behind, is also saving his car and is showing the strength of that Oldsmobile, particularly under braking. He loses a bit out of the corners going down the straights to the V8 power, but it closes right back up under braking.
At number 76 is one of the other Canadians entered in today's race. That is Jerry Simmons, in also one of the few Corvettes that has entered here today. We actually had 2 Corvettes. The most popular mark was Chevrolet, as there were 18 Camaros in addition to the 2 Corvettes, and 1 Chevy Lumina. Are you listening, France family down in NASCAR land? 1 Chevy Lumina that entered the race today. Glenn Andrew, a high school basketball coach from Farmersburg, Indiana, down in the Terre Haute area.
And I'll bet he gets a lot of students that join his team just so they can help work on the car.
Probably true.
Come on, coach, let me do this.
There were only 5 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supremes, but all 5 of them were pretty potent. 7 Mustangs and a couple of Pontiacs that were entered in today's race. Dennis?
This is Dennis Weglars, the head of Oldsmobile Motorsports here in the United States. Dennis, you got to be pleased with what you're seeing. You got a second-place car, another car in the top 10. Plus, this Rocket Sports team is the most dominant team in Trans Am today.
Well, the Rocket Sports team has really done Oldsmobile a lot of good this year, and we're really proud of the effort Paul and his folks have put forward. Saying we're in second, there's still a long way to go. I always look at it, you can lose a race on any lap. It takes 1 lap to win it, so it's still a ways.
From a marketing standpoint, how important is it for Oldsmobile and some of the other manufacturers to do well here in the Motor City?
Well, it's really a point of honor, you know, especially with the folks in the motorsports groups, I think, more than anything. Oldsmobile, Ford, they're big operations. You could probably find some folks there who probably wouldn't even know we were racing down here. But when you get to the folks in the engineering groups, the folks in the product group, and definitely the folks in the motorsports group, just having bragging rights for that year, that's all important.
Okay, let's get back to the action, and Larry Nuber.
Thanks, Dennis. So, Bill, I am told to a man, every crew member says the phones ring on Friday before the weekend, and they really ring on Monday.
Yeah, I'll bet. And I'll bet there's different levels of enthusiasm on Monday, depending on what the answers are.
Well, we are now getting to the point in the race. We are approaching lap number 25. We are just a little bit past the halfway point where anybody is holding back. They need to start showing it. Also, the teams, when they entered today's race, they basically had a selection of 3 different tire compounds to choose from. It's always a very tricky situation in racing, but particularly on the streets of downtown Detroit.
Tires, an issue wherever cars are racing. Here in Detroit, it's the same old question: which tire compound to use? The question has prompted some varied opinions.
Well, I think we'll probably be on the medium compound. Every race we've run this year so far, we've been on the hardest. So we'll step down to the medium. I'm sure that, you know, some of the other cars will go all the way down to the softest. But from experience, we feel that the medium compound's right here.
We're going to go with soft tires and run them real hard. I mean, that's just what we're going to do. We've got the least powerful car on here. We don't even have fuel injection at R6, and the lightest car because of that. So we've learned now from what happened at the first couple races. We're learning more about this real soft tire and the medium compound tires. You're not going to see any more hard tires on our car. We've learned a lesson that way, and we're going to run our car and run it fast from the beginning. No kidding.
It's going to be, it's always hot, and it's always such a long race it ends up being, so you really have to be conservative in whatever tire selection you pick. And I think obviously the people who go more conservative on compounds won't have to worry about it quite as much as people on softer ones, but we'll have to wait and see just on our tire temperatures as to what compound we choose. But you're going to need tires at the end of the race to put my car, Duracell Camaro, up front.
With 3 obvious tire compounds to choose from, you would think selecting the proper tire to run would be easy. In racing, nothing is easy, and certainly nothing is ever obvious.
And a man who has not had an easy or obvious day is the team owner of Scott Sharp's car. He's had the euphoria of his driver starting on the pole and leading the race, and also the immense disappointment of his other car that also expected to vie for the win here, dropping out early on. Buzz McCall is standing by with Jim Hendrick.
Okay, Larry, we're down here with Buzz McCall. Buzz, you have to have mixed emotions. You've got Baldwin beached, and you've got the lead car out there.
Well, we were first out, and we're first on the track. There's going to be some story if we're first and last. But I really did have mixed emotions. I was really proud of the team. We started in the front row. We won yesterday, but, you know, yesterday didn't count. Today's today. Jack clipped the wall. It was really unfortunate for him. Scotty's he's out front, but this race has been really cruel to some of the Chevy teams the last couple of years, and we really hope we can break that jinx today.
And yet you're looking to repeat here last year. Win last year, was it?
Well, Scotty did in a wild finish. Jack, of course, was third last year. Scotty'd like to earn this one from start to finish. It'd be a great victory for him, but, you know, this is a long way. This is the toughest 40 laps in motor racing.
All right, thank you, Buzz McCall. Let's go back up to, let's go down the pits now. We hear another report from Dennis Stories. Dennis?
Jim, I'm standing by the number 44 entry of Scott Lagasse, sitting in his car. He's pulled the wheel off the steering column. Scott, what's the problem?
Well, we got something wrong with the left front. I think we had a tire go down. It might have damaged the suspension when it did, but they're taking a look at it now, and hopefully we can get back out and finish this thing.
That is Scott Lagasse and the EDS-sponsored Group 44 Pontiac Trans Am. Bob Tullius tells me that there's also a lot of Firebird in that car, but it's all Pontiac. Even the engine is a genuine Pontiac, which isn't always the perfect match in Trans Am racing. Sometimes there are other manufacturers whose products sneak under the hoods of a car that may look like another kind, but this is Pontiac from through to through. Scott Lagasse, of course, is from St. Augustine, Florida. He has immense experience on the road courses of America, lots of experience in sedans as well as club racing, and he's moved up to Trans Am, but he right now sits in the pits. Scott Sharp continues to lead. We'll be back. 10 of the Motor City 100. You can see Paul Gentilossi for the first time today shows up in the number 4 position. Fellows is 5th. 6 through 10th, Sobey. Steve Petty comes up from the back of the pack. George Robinson 8th. Jim Derhaag is 9th, and Steve Saleen is 10th. Now, among the people missing, Tom Gloy has retired from this race, at least temporarily. We don't know if it's permanent or not yet. It may have been a tire problem. Tom was running in 4th position, and Darren Brasfield, coming into today's race as the points leader, was dropping back steadily, and finally he has pulled out, in the initial word we have from our radios in the pits, out of race.
And apparently Tom Gloy has been suffering some sort of a brake problem. Now, we're going to try and find out for sure. But again, this track, because of the nature of it, with the walls, puts a tremendous strain on the brakes. You have temperatures that build up here and put great pressures on everything from fluids. He is back out now, but we'll take a better look and to see how he's able to progress back through this field. Back on board, Ron Fellows Mustang here. Great view from the top of the roof. This gives you an idea of what the drivers are looking at. In fact, look at the view. See, we're getting close to the wall. You can't get intimidated by that, but you always have to pay attention. You've got to watch the walls, balance the car as it's leaving the corners. Look, right up tight against the wall, tight to the inside, over against the tires on the outside. Here we go into the apex there, back up line.
Well, Scott Sharp, who is leading this race, was the fastest qualifier and has led most of this race. It puts him in good shape for the Fast 5 competition. The Kenwood Communications Corporation has returned the Kenwood Fast 5 qualifying to Trans Am this season. Now, under this program, the 5 fastest qualifiers from the first qualifying session every weekend are locked into their grid positions. Plus, they share $3,100 in prize money. They also accumulate Kenwood Fast 5 points. At the end of the season, the drivers with the most Fast 5 points are eligible to compete in a 10-lap, $20,000 race. Additionally, should one driver qualify in the top 5 at every race and accumulate more points than any other driver throughout the season, he is awarded an additional $5,000. Here at race number 4, we're already down to one eligible candidate for that category. That is Irv Hare. Kenwood has returned the high fidelity to Trans Am racing, at least making qualifying an important competition within the season. Approximately 13 cars, we say approximately because things are happening very quick, have been able to stay on the lead lap. There is Jerry Simmons. You can see he has made contact with either another competitor or a piece of cement, and given the location of his damage, it looks like another race car.
Yeah, I expect so. It's on the nose. You can see the bottom part, but there was a little bit of smoke coming off the car too. Now, what this could be is the fiberglass going back into the left front tire and rubbing on it, just creating the smoke. He's going through the corner, and everything mechanically looks fine on the car. I don't think that's a problem. They'll just have to make a fast pit stop, rip this fiberglass off, or maybe even keep going. We'll see if he gets black flagged by the SCCA workers.
Jerry Simmons proudly displaying the colors of True North Racing Canada. And incidentally, we are south of Canada when we are in downtown Detroit, for those of you who are geography students. So it really isn't True North when you race in Detroit because you're south to a degree, although he lives north of Detroit, of course.
I expect that Jerry will have to make a pit stop here because it looks like the hood in that Corvette is coming loose. 28 laps complete. Sharp, Irv Hare, the number 3 car of Greg Pickett. Paul Gentilossi has moved up to 4th, moving his Olds Cutlass through the field, marching through the top 10. Ron Fellows in the Ford Mustang is 5th. Bob Sobey, having a solid race in his Chevy Camaro V8, is in 6th position. George Robinson in another one of those teeny V6s is 7th. And Steve Petty, who started today's race in 20th position. He has been very disappointed over his results of the 1991 season, and he's having a great race today. 9th is Steve Saleen, and 10th is Jim Derhaag. Now, those are the top 10, and lots of changes, as we mentioned. But Scott Sharp in the Duracell Chevy Camaro continues to set the pace. Now, here's a full field rundown. We just finished the top 10 for you. There you can see Gentilossi is 4th. Sobey, as we mentioned, a great race. Petty now 7th. Looking to the 9th running, Jim Derhaag. He's often there. Randy Ruhlman is 11th. Then Deborah Gregg, the only lady in today's race. And Tom Gloy, unofficially, the last person on the lead lap. St. Louis businessman Jerry Clinton there running in the top 20. There is Darren Brasfield temporarily out of the race. And now these are the cars that have dropped out so far. Phil Kalushaw with a crash. He is okay. Car was badly damaged. And Bob Patch
in a race with Jack Baldwin to be the first car out of today's race, and Jack even lost that one. Pat even beat him to being the first out. Now you notice that Tom Gloy, with the problems that we were talking about, Bill, lost 10 positions and now is running in 13th position, and he was one of the fastest cars in the first half of the race.
It unfortunately takes Tom out of a position of even a possible win. Being that far back, we're just watching it, just sliding inside. Now, we just saw the blue flag here. This is a good point about these course workers. These are volunteer workers who out, they're standing out there at 90-degree heat. They're in these white uniforms. They are hot. Do they get paid $10,000 a day? Not a cent.
You're looking at 5th, 6th, and 7th. Fellows, Sobey and George Robinson, and that is a battle on the track for position. They are each trying to move into that exclusive group, the top 5 finish. And Fellows, they wavering just a little bit because both Sobey and George Robinson are moving up on them.
Great shot back inside the car here. Now watching Ron drive. There he is back in high gear. He's coming down the straight. That'll be a 5th gear in this car. There he's on the brakes, 4th, 3rd. And as he's turning into the corner, look at how gentle he's being. Power steering, so it's very fast steering. Just watch, not really a great deal of body movement by either. So that shows the track surface. This is an extremely smooth track. We're going to go down to the pits with Dennis.
Ontario, Canada's Jerry Simmons brings in the True North Racing Corvette for at least the second time. The first time was his own doing. He has been black flagged by the SCCA. As you can see, they're tearing away the bodywork on the front tire. He came together with perhaps the wall or another car, but as you can see, they're stripping it down, and that will do nothing for the aerodynamics on the 76 Corvette. His engine is still running. It looks like he will be going out.
Always breaks my heart, Bill. You spend all winter molding by hand that bodywork, and you have an incident on track, and a crewman comes out and rips it off and throws it away.
You know, I was just going to say, I do not agree, and I cannot understand why they did that. There was no reason to do it.
Why has CCA brought him in, you mean?
Well, no. Why has the crewman ripped that off?
Yeah.
Because most of that piece was fine until the crewman tore it off. If part of it's broken, then fine. You take it at the brake and get rid of it. They did one smart thing there by taking the hood totally off and not allowing it to blow off because of air getting built up underneath it.
Yep, certainly would have. There's Dick Danielson from the heartland of America, Heartland, Wisconsin, incidentally. Going around the outside, Dick is in that white, red, and black trim, number 9. That is also Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Well, Scott Sharp continues to hold the lead. He's got about a 5-second lead, and the interval really hasn't changed that much. Incidentally, he has also picked up a 2-point bonus today for winning the pole and also for leading the most laps. You're watching the Prime Network and the Trans Am Motor City 100. You've just seen a pass for the top 5 positions. Bob Sobey has stalked Ron Fellows for the past 3 or 4 laps. He snuck underneath him on that right-hander, and George Robinson almost got through. This is 5th, 6th, and now there is Robinson moving to the left side of Ron Fellows as you watch the same view that Ron Fellows has. And now Robinson trying to get inside of Sobey, but he stands on the binders as Sobey does not give him enough room.
Oh,
but
yeah.
He owns the racetrack.
Boy, was that close. I thought for sure George was going to get up inside and cause a T-bone right there, but very, very quick to realize what was happening. Look at the power slide coming out here as Fellows gets alongside and repasses Robinson, exiting the corner.
So Bob Sobey holds on to 5th, but Ron Fellows moves back into the 6th position.
Well, look at the inside. There Robinson retakes it back under braking. Just got in real late, but watch. Yeah, he's able to stretch it out. Ron Fellows has definitely got some sort of a problem, perhaps with those rear tires. They just may not be hooking up any longer and allowing the car to spin even worse. It's like catch-22. They spin, wheel spin off the corner. The car doesn't get a good bite, and then as you spin more, it heats them up even more and makes them spin more. So it's an endless bad fall all the way downhill.
At this point, Ron Fellows sitting atop, or behind rather, a V8, probably at a disadvantage because, Bill, as you pointed out, what we suspect to be, overheated tires.
Now, in fact, I'm sure of it now. We just saw Ron exiting that corner, a lot of power slide. We can watch the back of the Mackenzie Mustang. It's sliding a great deal. Now, Ron has a habit of using his right foot a little bit hard. Sometimes you want to back off and be a little smooth. he would make a wonderful sprint car driver, Larry. You'd love that.
Absolutely. There is Greg Pickett coming between slower. That's Gentilossi. That's not slower traffic at all. Paul Gentilossi, who has rocketed, may I say, the Rocket Sports car has rocketed up to 4th position after kind of lounging around in about 10th after starting this race in 11th. Gentilossi has driven a very intelligent race and is up to challenge in the first 4. There you can see 2 of the Rocket Sports cars. They're running in the top 10. We'll be back. We're back at the Motor City 100. There is leader Scott Sharp. His lead, we do not believe, is very secure at all. And now that we're live, I do want to make mention, as we look at Steve Saleen, who was running in 9th position inside the top 10. Steve Saleen in the champion Sparkplug Scorcher battery is not scorching the racetrack and looks like he's going to come to a stop. He's looking for a safe place on the right-hand side after a left or after a right-hander. It's a pretty safe place to stop. There is some debris on the track also at that corner, but Steve Saleen, after moving up to 9th position, is out.
I think the most important thing about this is, will it bring out a pace car? Because if it does, there goes Scott Sharp's lead. So that's the important thing right now. Sharp, at this point, when he sees that car stop, will be praying that he gets it going again.
And Bill, this has probably been the most safe, uneventful Detroit Motor City 100 we have ever seen. Scott Sharp, the leader, has now completed 34 laps, only 6 laps to go. We're looking at Bob Sobey and George Robinson. Sobey has moved up to 4th, George Robinson 5th. But, Bill, we've only had that one incident involving Kalusha.
No, it has been amazing, and yet here it comes, just what we were talking about. The people who have waited have let the race come to them, all except Scott Sharp. He has driven an extremely smart race. Now, there's an 11.25 second lead that Scott Sharp is holding over the Camaro of Greg Pickett. That's not a great deal. Now, I think we're going to get a report from Dennis, and he is with Steve Saleen's crew chief.
That's right, Bill. This is Charlie Lang, the guy who heads up the operation over here at Saleen Racing. What did Steve say happened to him on the radio?
He says he's out of fuel, but I believe what happened is when he got tangled up with Lagasse in the first turn, it must have hurt something inside the fuel cell.
Is that fuel pickup problems then?
It's basically fuel pickup problems. The pumps are down inside the tank, and I don't think it'll draw any fuel.
Well, other winners here at the Detroit Motor City 100 have been Elliott Forbes, Robinson, Scott Pruitt, now running Indianapolis cars, Hurley Haywood. A few years back when they had those all-wheel drive Audis, as we mentioned, there were 4 drivers who started today's race who were previous winners, and Scott Sharp and Greg Pickett, ironically, running 1-2 right now, our previous winners of this race.
Very critical point, too, and that Scott gets through this traffic as quickly as possible. It doesn't take very long, and it can be so frustrating when it happens. It walks in behind a car. I think we're going to have another report now down to Jim Hendrick.
All right, thank you very much, Bill. We've got Mike Medley, the crew chief of the number 2 car, which is, of course, the Pickett team. And are you conversing with your driver right now, Greg Pickett?
Yes, right now. He says everything's going good. I just don't know if he can catch Scotty or not.
Well, you've got about 8 laps to go, and you're about 11 seconds back. What's your plans from here on? What are you going to try?
Just try to run it hard as he can, I told him. 1 second, please.
Okay, here he comes as he comes down right now. And let's go back up to you, Larry.
Well, Scott Sharp has just put a lap on the Flying Watermelon. And now we have a spin and a crash as we get down near the final stages of this race.
A little bit of debris was left over there, but I think the workers will be able to get it out of the way.
The Flying Watermelon, by the way, is an affectionate term for Bruce Nesbitt's car. The Chicago, Illinois driver has a lime green, magenta painted number 50, but Scott Sharp continues to run out front and not encounter any difficulties at all. He only has 5 laps to go. Can he turn the trick for the 2nd year in a row? Scott Sharp, who came into today's race ranked 5th in laps led, has really added to that total in today's Motor City 100. He had only led 20 laps prior to today. He was also 5th in miles led. He had 1 pole this season as he goes on the inside of Don Sack in the red, yellow, orange, and blue number 10. Sharp also had accumulated 6 points for the Duralt Fuel Conditioner Star of the Race point standings, and he was leading the Kenwood Fast 5 points, and he picked up a lot more, including a $2,500 bonus. So he has had a great week. Frankly speaking, he's had a great last couple of Trans Am races.
Oh, and he keeps getting better. He has got so much maturity for a driver so young and with so little experience. Watching him drive the car, it appears that he has been in one of these cars for 20 years. He's just amazing.
Scott Sharp had a 6th place finish at the season opener in Sears Point. He won the Mexico City round, a racetrack that we all believe was highly conducive to his potent V8 power plant. Then he dropped out at Dallas and finished 24th, so he came into today only ranked 6th in points, but he was just 16 behind Darren Brasfield, who has dropped out of the race. Now, Ron Fellows has also slipped backwards today. He was 2nd in points, and now Fellows is 6th in the race, so that's really going to hurt his standings. The driver who was 3rd in the point standings, Jack Baldwin, dropped out early, so Irv Hare and Scott Sharp are going to get out of Detroit as the big winners in the point standings.
Very, very successful from that standpoint. Once again through the tunnel, here's Greg Pickett. He's got what appears to be a very solid 2nd place. I don't think he's making much of a dent, but we're still showing a 13-second lead. Scott Sharp is able to keep holding. And again, both of these drivers are very smooth.
Greg Pickett has been able to mount one of those patented Pickett's charge, if you will. Here in the latter stages of the race, he ran conservatively, then tiptoed through the top 5 and finally landed in 2nd in his Cyto Max Special. That's an exercise drink, by the way. It's also a member of the Champion Nutrition family. They have another drink called Metabolol 2, and that happens to be the family and the company business. Greg Pickett has been able to use that in finance some of his racing habit.
Is that what I saw you drinking last night, Larry? Was that some of that fine stuff?
Yeah. You know me, it's got to be non-alcoholic.
I do, yes. Well, it appears that in these last few laps, we've just got 3 laps to go right now, it appears that Paul Gentilozzi is now sneaking up closer and closer to Greg Pickett.
Paul Gentilozzi in one of those Oldsmobile Cutlass Supremes, sponsored by Olivetti. It's a V6 engine, and they have been very successful. As Dennis Torres pointed out earlier today, they have been the dominant team in Trans Am so far. But we're only 3 races in, but the Chevy's really the last 2 races.
Yep, look at this. Look in the background, Jess. Gentilozzi's black car, and you can see behind Pickett's Camaro. He definitely is closing up.
Well, 37 laps today, and we're going to repeat again. This is the cleanest Motor City 100 I have ever seen. This is totally unlike what we've seen in years past. You know, some of the top racers dropped out sort of the midway point. That may well have been a factor, but you just had the feeling that all the drivers today thought, hey, we're not going to destroy our field when we come to Detroit this year. Dennis Torres in the pits.
Well, one of the reasons why Irv Hare has been losing ground and perhaps Mr. Greg Pickett is picking up the pace is that Irv Hare has lost, in fact, 4th gear. He is motoring around this very tight circuit without 4th gear. He's also having other transmission problems. So we're going to see if he can hang on with just a couple of laps to go.
Well, Dennis Irv has slipped all the way back to 12th. Quick rundown of the top 12. There are 12 cars in the lead lap. Sharp completing right there, lap number 38. Pickett 2nd, Chevy Camaro. Gentilozzi, the 6-cylinder Olds Cutlass Supreme. 4th is George Robinson. Bob Sobey is 5th. Ron Fellows has dropped back to 6th position in his V8 Ford Mustang, sponsored by AER. Randy Ruhlman out of the Gloy Racing Stable, and car number 12 is in 7th, as 2nd and 3rd continue to get tighter. Jim Durhag is 8th in car number 40. That's the Van Housen Auto Parts Electric Wire Products Camaro. The veteran Jim Durhag. There's that battle for 2nd and 3rd. Deborah Gregg is 9th. Tom Gloy is 10th. Steve Petty slipped a little bit. He's now 11th, and Irv Hare is 12th. You've been watching this battle.
Oh, and we have a killer battle developing here. Gentilozzi is really fired up, and look at him closing. He is very, very quickly closing on the Pickett Camaro.
Paul Gentilozzi's best finish so far in 1991 has been a 3rd. That was the opening round at Sears Point when the Oldsmobiles finished 1, 2, 3. Gentilozzi has 1 career win. He's looking for 2nd place here today.
He is certainly looking for 2nd place here today. And he is the, should I say, the elder statesman of the Rocket Sports team.
Oh, I think he would accept that. What are the other guys, 16?
Oh, yeah. Darren, I think, is 12, 13.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but he is just driving very quickly right now, and beautifully.
That Rocket Sports team is a strong one. In point of fact, Darren Brasfield who was the points leader coming into today, is 27 years of age. Irv Hare is 44. And Paul Gentilossi is 41, a very mature 41, right? Team manager.
Oh, look at this now. Pickett has locked up the right front tire. He's getting blocked a little. That's the Jerry Simmons Corvette. They're both going to go around.
Jerry pointed the way. His hand came out oh, no. He apparently did not see that Gentilossi was coming, and he drove out of the way. He was trying to avoid Paul. I don't know that Paul lost that much time.
Oh, I think Paul might have just given a little nudge to get by there. That was uncalled for.
Well, and he did lose significant time, as this is lap number 39. It looks like we are going to get through Detroit in the best fashion maybe in the history of this race. Scott Sharp now enters his last lap here at Detroit. 2.5 miles to go. He makes the big 180, the horseshoe turn, corners number 1 and corners number 2. He'll next make a hard right-hander onto St. Antoine Street. There is where he made one of his best passes of the race today. Another right-hander onto Woodbridge Street, actually leading onto Congress Parkway. He goes through the park now, a series of gradual corners. Then there's a hard left-hander that puts him onto Congress Parkway as he gets about halfway around this final tour of the 2.5 miles.
Well, I think right now Paul Gentilossi has to be the angriest man at this facility, because that little incident with Jerry Simmons has effectively cost him a realistic shot at passing Pickett. I think Greg will hold a little bit of a lead. All he needs to do is cross that finish line in front of him, and he will certainly make sure he does that. Really frustrating, and one of the problems in trying to go around a street circuit like this, what may have happened is that Jerry Simmons looked in his mirror, saw Pickett coming, moved over, and didn't bother thinking there might be 2 cars there.
A very interesting season shaping up in Trans Am. Here we are early on in the year, only 4 races in, and just about everyone who is vying for the points championship has had 2 bad races. Scott Sharp has only had 1. He comes almost to a stop.
He did come almost to a stop there. I wonder if he is having some sort of a fuel problem. He's only got a few more corners to go, but he still does have distance to go. The race is not over yet.
That car is definitely missing as he goes to the flat spots of the racetrack, Bill. He does not have far to go. He's now underneath the tunnel on Atwater Street. This is the final straightaways on this course. Scott Sharp now with about a half a mile to go. He'll make this quick left, and then he'll flick back onto the front stretch. Now a quarter of a mile. Scott Sharp is going to win it, but he is limping home.
Oh, he's going to be so relieved when he sees this flag come out, but he is going to make it.
So Scott Sharp becomes the first 2-race winner of 1991 on the Liquid Tide Trans Am Trail. Scott Sharp brings home the Buzz McCall Duracell Chevrolet Camaro number 33. Second place goes to Greg Pickett, and a disappointed Paul Gentilossi will be third. Paul Gentilossi has come to a stop right at the very end of pit road. Sharp, by the way, leaps from 6th to second in the point standings. Ron Fellows, by our unofficial count, now leads Scott Sharp by a single point in the point standings. And Greg Pickett is third, a very short distance behind the points leaders, Ron Fellows and Scott Sharp. They're separated only by a single point. Back at the Motor City 100, where Scott Sharp has come home the winner, Greg Pickett in second, Paul Gentilossi third, George Robinson fourth, and Ron Fellows in 5th position in car number 4. Scott Sharp has won for the 2nd year in a row. He wins for Chevrolet this season, but it was for a different manufacturer in 1990. Dennis Torres is down in victory lane. There you can see Scott Sharp looking for the bow tie of Chevrolet for the 1991 win. And Scott taking a little bit of extra breather there. It was tough. It was very warm today on the streets of downtown Detroit, and even though he is just 23 years of age, it still really challenges you, doesn't it, Bill?
Oh, it certainly does. And if anything, because you have such a little time experiencing the... In fact, just let me interrupt my train of thought here and point something out to people. You can see as he opens up the driving suit, that is a cool suit inside. This is something that has almost become a standard necessary item for racing nowadays because of the heat. You get cockpit temperatures exceeding 130 degrees, that just pumps some cool fluid through it. It keeps you alive.
Well, Dennis, you have Scott
Okay, we're
Sharp.
down here. Scott is taking off his cool suit. As you can see, he has a cool suit here that provides cool water that Coastal over his bite and keeps him cool in the cockpit. It's getting a cold tell. Scott came here in Detroit, qualified on the pole, put in a dominant performance on the track. Where do you get this maturity and this speed to do so well?
Well, I'll tell you, it sure wasn't that easy. It was a hard race. It really was. The track really deteriorated, and the crew, they just put a heck of a car under me. Duracell Camaro was fast all day, and I felt I had them covered, but then when the track started breaking up, the car really started slowing down. I just got to thank my whole crew and everyone for giving me the chance. Got to thank God, and we did it.
Yeah. Now, when Wally Jr. was out there, he was giving you a little bit of a go before he left.
Yes, he was. I was worried about Wally, but he was really pushing hard, and he was really loose. And for that early in the race, I figured he'd really hurt his tires.
Let me ask you think Papa Sharp is watching back home in Connecticut?
He's
what do you
right
think?
behind you.
Oh, there he is. And he has a big smile on his face. What's next? 2 wins and 4 races. The car is really running fast. The Duracell Camaro seems to be on track. Team is on track. You're on track. We talking championship here?
I sure hope so. It really got us back into the points situation. I think after last race it was just a little bit of disappointment. We were on the pole and we dropped out, and it's nice to be back, and I think we're somewhere among the front runners in points at least now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go back to Larry Newber.
By our unofficial count, Scott Sharp is just 1 point out of the points lead. He's the winner here. He led 36 laps. There were 2 lead changes. Average speed just 67 miles per hour. There was just 1 solitary caution flag for 5 laps. Very uncharacteristic for a race to Detroit. We'll be back with more from the Motor City 100. Second place is strange. Everybody in the park except one person wants to finish there. But the man who finishes there is probably the most disappointed after every race. Jim Hendrick is with our second place finisher now.
And he's the wily veteran, Greg Pickett. And Greg, fine race. You just couldn't catch the leader there.
No, not quite. Scotty was hooked up today. He showed that in qualifying. He was pretty tough. We're just happy to be there. The champion Camaro, the side of Max car, just did a good job today. It was a little warm in the middle of the race for the front tires, so we took it a little bit easy. It was hard passing a lot of that traffic, but we bided our time, and we're going to go to the pay window.
Well, third place in Dallas, second place in Detroit. Who knows what's next?
Here we come, Portland. That's right. We're looking forward to that.
Okay. Congratulations, Greg, and we'll let you go now.
Thanks very much.
Greg Pickett, number 2 on the big race here in Detroit. Go back up to the booth, and Larry Newber. Larry?
Yeah, you're looking at Scott Sharp. He is the man that everybody would like to have been today, because he has won for the second time in 1991. Scott Sharp, at just 23 years of age, is going to have a terrific Trans Am season. It's likely that this young man is headed for IndyCar sometime in the near future, and if he continues with this success, it may be sooner rather than later.
Well, he does have a remarkable future, and to think about being this good this early in his career, but he can afford to buy one of these now.
Evidence of where we're actually located. We're right on the banks of the Detroit River. We're situated just adjacent to downtown. We're very close to the Renaissance Center, down the road from the Cobo Hall Arena. As we look at some more of the sights of the place where they run the Gold Cup every year, one of the most famous boat races in America. Here are the point standings. This is unofficial now, although we are pretty confident about it. Fellows lead Scott Sharp by 2 points. He picked up 1 position in the final lap. Pickett is in 3rd, Irv Hare 4th, and Darren Brassfield is currently 5th. Still more. Inside of every Liquid Tide Trans Am race is a competition called the DeRault Fuel Conditioner Star of the Race. And the winner of that competition today was Scott Sharp, who also won this race. Doesn't always go to the race winner, but it goes to the man who turned in the most spectacular driving performance, and he was undoubtedly the most consistently fast today. Finished second in that competition was Greg Pickett and Bob Sobey. Pickett moves himself up in the DeRault standings, and Sobey appears for the first time. Dennis?
Well, I'm down here with the 3rd member of the victory rostrum, the man who's not to be left out, George Robinson. George, fantastic race.
Yeah, it went pretty good. The traffic was pretty hard out there. We got held up for a while and lost our momentum. And finally we got by the guys and made a run for the lead, but it was a little too late, too little too late, you know.
Was this the cleanest Detroit race have you seen?
Yeah, last year I don't think we ran 3 laps without a yellow flag, so yeah, it was pretty clean. The track got pretty slippery out there, so you have to stay on the line, but it's a tough race and you keep busy out there.
This 3rd place finish a momentum builder for the rest of the season?
Well, I finished 4th.
Nothing to be embarrassed about, so don't worry about it. Let's go back to Larry.
Okay.
Well, George Robinson was fighting with Paul Gentilossi and Greg Pickett He finished in the number 4 position behind Paul and Greg. George Robinson turning in his second strong performance of the 1991 season, Bill. He matches his 4th place at Sears Point. Here's a guy who came over from IMSA Racing, didn't really have that much experience in cars with this much horsepower. He's having a good year.
No, and I think maybe this points out the value of having very good machinery around you. That obviously George is blessed with a fair degree of talent, as we have seen now in a couple of races, but didn't have a chance to show it until he got in one of these new Bob Riley designed Camaros. Excellent car, and now look, he's a very, very strong challenger to win any one of these.
And Scott Sharp, winning for the 2nd time, does not have a dominating lead in the points, even though he's the only driver who's won twice of the first 4 races. Everybody seems to be having periodic bad races. That is keeping the points together. But the other interesting thing that's happening is that the V6s and the V8s do appear to be evenly matched in 1991.
It seems to be, and once again, like just to re-emphasize this point system, look who's leading. Ron Fellows, this old Mustang,
who has not won a race yet in the 1991 season.
Right.
You're looking at the first 3 finishers in the Motor City 100 for 1991. Right now, Scott Sharp, who won the event, is addressing the crowd. On his right is runner-up Greg Pickett, and on his left is Paul Genealosi. Scott Sharp behind the wheel of a V8 Camaro, Greg Pickett a V6 Camaro, and Paul Genealosi a V6 Oldsmobile. 1, 2, and 3 in 1991. Finishing behind that leading trio was George Robinson, another V6 Camaro. A great drive today, actually a great weekend for George Robinson. Ron Fellows is the highest finishing Ford product. Hey, you're on the board, guys. Ford gets 5th today in Detroit. Bob Sobey out of Arizona in a Camaro is 6th. Randy Ruhlman is 7th. Jim Derhaag 8th. And Steve Petty 9th. Deborah Gregg 10th. Camaros all among 6th through 10th. Bruce Nesbitt finished in the 11th position. Glenn Fox in a Mustang was 12th. Irv Hare was in 13th position after running in the top 3 for the first half of the race. Dick Danielson soldiered on for 14th. Donald Sack was 15th. Cars that did not finish dropped out of the race. Tom Gloy, after a terrific qualifying time, ran in the top 4. Ed Hinchcliffe in car number 29, a local driver. Jerry Simmons from Canada, Steve Saleen out of California, and Jerry Clinton, the racing businessman from the St. Louis, Missouri area. Darren Brasfield came into today leading the points. Scott Lagasse, the pride of Pontiac for Trans Am. Wally Dallenbach, he looked like a winner for a while. Phil Bartelt and Peter Deeman. 26th through 30th were Les Lindley, Wayne Akers, Phil Kalusha, a serious-looking accident, no injury, Gary Foch, and Jack Baldwin, who was very disappointed after qualifying in 2nd. The last car on the track, or rather the last place finisher, was Bob Patch, and poor old Jack Baldwin couldn't get credited with last place finish.
Well, I guess that is the one pole position you never want.
There is Scott Sharp enjoying his 3rd career Trans Am win. His first career win was at this very racetrack 1 year ago, and now he has won twice in the 1991 season. Bill, a final thought?
I think it looks very dismal for the rest of the crowd, and even though we have seen spectacular close racing where any number of marks were very, very competitive, this young man just looks so good.
Well, my thanks to everyone at the Detroit Grand Prix, Bob McCabe, the man in charge of the Renaissance Center, Eric DeWicki. My thanks to Dennis Torres and Jim Hendricks in the pits, and of course, as always, Bill Adam, your help here in the booth. I'm Larry Nuber, and for you at home watching on television, we're glad you joined us on Prime Network today. And hey, guess what? We'll see you at the races.